What is going on, guys, and welcome to Bootstrap tutorial. In this video we're going to talk about buttons in Bootstrap. So the first thing we would obviously need to do is we're going to create a button, and I'm just going to say that button is going to have type and it's going to be a button, and over here I'm just going to close it for now. And just for the purposes of actually showing you guys, I'm just going to create a div, and I'm going to say the div is going to have a container class, container, like this. And right now I'm just gonna put this div around all the buttons that I'm just gonna be creating. So I'm just gonna cut this and I'm just gonna put it somewhere here. And first thing we need to know about button, that we would need to add some classes over here. So this one I'm just gonna call a default, and the way we would work with buttons, we would actually have to create over here a class, and the class would be over here btn over here like this, and then we would need to specifically say what type of button we would want. So this one, you can see that I made default, so I'm just going to call it default, and you can see how it looks like over here on the top. Now let me just make a little bit more room over here so we can work with this. And what I'm going to do is over here, I'm just going to start pasting. And the next thing that I would want to show you is actually if we make a button over here, and if I make a class a info like this. So now I'm obviously going to write an info, and you can again see how it is appearing a blue over here. And my point over here, again, these are going to be these classes that we can keep adding to different type of elements, right? If you remember alert features that we were working in, we're using this default, but then we were saying alert default, now we're saying button default. So it works the same way. We're basically adding over here this some type of first name here, and then we are adding what type of section it would be the second one, right? So here it's going to be button default, button info, and obviously we can go down the list, and I'm just going to keep copying this, and this one I'm just going to say warning over here, and so this is going to be warning over here like this, and warning over here like this, and then obviously we can create another one which is going to be a success. So let me just write over here success like this, and again we would have to change this, and now we have success. So this is going to be like this greenish color. Then obviously we can copy this one more time and make primary, and the last one is going to be link. So here I'm just going to say that this is primary over here, and this is going to be a link, right? So these are the options that we have for the buttons. So over here we're just going to write primary, and over here we're going to write a link. So these are the options that we can have with a buttons. So now let's have a look how we can create a buttons out of different elements. So the first thing I would want to do is actually show you the link. So what I'm going to do over here, I'm just going to create a div, and the div is going to have a class of container over here like this, and within that container we're going to place a link, and I'm just going to give it a href of, let's say, a hashtag here like this. And the next thing we would need to do is actually write a type, and the type obviously should be button, the same as when we were using with the buttons. And also we're going to add the same class, but over here I'm just going to say that it's going to be button danger. However, we need to also add this one attribute of role, and the role should be button, right? So over here I'm going to write a button, and now our link is going to work as a button. So now you can see this is our link. And if over here I just write this is a link styled as button, over here you can see that this is going to be my link. Now the next thing that we need to do is actually create a input value and also styled as a button. So over here, if I write input, and if I say that input is going to be, let's say, type is going to be button like this, and the next thing that I would need to again also add a class over here, and I'm just going to say a button is going to have a button, I don't know, let's say warning over here like this. This is going to be our button, and if I just close it out over here, you can see that this is going to be our button. However, if we want to actually write something in that input value, we would also actually have to use a value, right? Value attribute. So here, if I write value, and here let's say this is a input value styled as button. So this is going to be our input. However, it's going to be styled as a button. And the same works over here if we would actually create submit. So over here, if I write a submit, again, the same thing. If we have this button, and let's say this one, I'm just going to make it info. And over here, this is a input value submit styled as a button. So this is going to be our third one. And obviously the last one, we can just copy this button just to show that the button obviously to work again with the same way. And here we just copy this, paste it over here. So this is going to be our button. This is just going to be as a regular link, and you can see that it's styled over here. And what we would need to do, we can just have a look that if we wanted to have a input value styled as buttons, we needed to use the value attribute. If we want to have, somewhere here, something written over here, just like with the typical input. But what we would need to do is actually add this class. But with the link, we also would need to add this a role over here and actually give it the value of the button. So these are pretty much the 4 ways how we can actually create buttons. Now the next thing that I would want to show you is actual sizes of the buttons. So if we go down here, and again we're just going to create a div, and the div is going to have class container like this, and over here we're just going to write a couple of button sizes. So I'm just going to again just pass the same thing. I guess it's not the best thing, so I'm just going to change it around. Warning over here, and let's maybe make a little line break so we can see this is going to be what we're working in. And over here I'm just going to say that this is warning here like this. And let's say right now that if we're, and you can see that I actually missed 10 over here, and that's why it was pretty much a gray, because I missed this class over here. So this is what's going to happen if we miss classes. However, if we add over here a button size, and obviously the first one would be small. So if I write like this, extra small, so you can see how it becomes extra small. And obviously I'm just going to copy this right now, let's say a couple of times. So it's going to be small, next one is going to be medium, and this is going to be large. So if we go over here and if we write small, you can see that this becomes bigger. The next one is going to be obviously medium, and after that is going to be a large, right? So over here we have large, and this is going to be bigger, right? So you can see how they go from the extra small to small, medium, and large. So these are the choices that we can actually have with the buttons. Now another thing that we can actually add is a class, and it could be a class disable or active, right? So we just go somewhere over here where we're adding classes, and if we would add over here, and if I would say disabled over here like this, you can see how it actually gets this like opacity differently, right? Because it becomes disabled. And over here, if I would say active, again, self-explanatory, it obviously would have a much more brighter appearance, because that would be our like active button. Now we can also do is actually make a block of buttons. So over here, if I write a div, and again I'm just going to create a little line break, and I'm just going to say that this is going to be div, the class is going to be container over here. And if I would say that, let's say that I would want a button, right? And the type is going to be a button over here, and the class is going to be, let's say, button, and then it's going to be button, I don't know what we haven't used so far. I think default, just so we can get used to that, default. And if I'm just going to close this out over here, you can see that this is my button, right? However, if I'm going to write, I am block button like this, and if I go over here with the classes, and again I would add over here a button block like this, you can see how it's spanning right away all across the whole screen. And obviously it would work the same with the wells. Remember when we were creating columns, and if I would place, let's say if I would choose that I want two columns that are spanning across half the screen, and if I place these buttons, they would just take exactly that side of the screen. So let me just show you that quickly. So over here, if we have a div, and it's going to have a class, and there's going to be a container over here, and over here it's going to create a column, but first we're just going to create a row. Let's say a row, and over here within that row we're going to create a two columns, right? And again, we're just going to say that this is a div, this is a class of column. Let's say again it's going to be extra small, 6, and I'm just going to copy them, both of them, so 2 of them like this. And if I would place my button over here inside, so if I'm just going to copy this button and copy this, and it's going to be over here, I'm just going to paste it in 2 places over here like this. And now you can see what happens, that I have these buttons that are spanning exactly across the half the screen, right? I am blog button and I'm blog button, and if we place them within our grid, they're actually going to be spanning right where we want them to within our grid. This is going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.